Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. This time it's a movie review of a horror film from 2017, Pyewacket, which is a Canadian horror film directed by Adam McDonald. Adam McDonald is an actor who recently moved on to direction. He was in several of the episodes of a sci-fi and romantic romantic drama kind of series called Being Erica, which was on Canadian television for 4 seasons. And he was also in several seasons of Rookie Blue, which is a cop show, another Canadian series. And he was also playing the character of Rick Savage in the movie about Def Leppard. The movie stars Laurie Holden as Mrs. Reyes and Nicole Munoz as her daughter, teenage daughter. The story is about Nicole's character, whose name is Leah Reyes. She is a teenager in high school whose father has recently passed away. Her mother, however, is struggling with the loss of her husband, and once she's back home from work, she's always in her room crying. She's kind of depressed. One evening, Leah goes to a book signing from an author who writes a lot of occult and black magic novels and books. And Leah is kind of fascinated with the occult and black magic, and her mother doesn't really approve. So she goes for the book signing, but then after that she hangs out with her friends, drinking beer and smoking weed. She comes back kind of late, and she and her mother has an argument. And that's when her mother decides that she wants to move away from that particular house because it's a lot of memories of her husband, and she moves to a remote house in the woods, and she has to drive. Because she's got to drive Nicole to the school and it takes a long time, she decides she's also going to take her out of the school and move her to another school. And this is upsetting for Leah because she doesn't want to be separated from her friends and continue in another school. One day, she kind of feels a little isolated in the house, and she has a fierce argument with her mother, and she gets really upset. Laurie Holden's character, Mrs. Reyes, says a lot of harsh things about Leah, and Leah gets upset. She goes to the woods. She takes from one of her books a ritual to summon the demon witch Pyewacket, and to kill her mother. And however, she doesn't see anything coming in, and a little later she and her mother bonds, and she sets to regret her actions. However, this is when strange occurrences happen. We see Pyewacket in the shape of a dark figure that's in her bedroom at night, and then Leah can hear loud noises from the attic, which her mother doesn't seem to notice, and there's piles of dirt in the house, which she ends up cleaning up. So this upsets her quite a bit, and she talks to her friends, and her best friend Janice. She decides that she will come over and stay in the house as an overnight guest. So she has dinner with Leah and her mom, and after they smoke weed outside, just the two girls, of course, they smoke weed outside, and they decide Janice is sleeping on the sofa with a blanket and a couple of pillows, and she gets attacked by Pyewacket. Although they don't really show the creature, she just gets scared, and when the next morning, when Leah and her mother looks for Janice, they find her cowering inside the car, refusing to come out and begging to be taken back to her house. So they do that, and then Janice doesn't come back to school after that. So Leah is pretty sure that Pyewacket is out to kill her mother and anybody else in the house, that because she's summoned it, and so she contacts the author of the book, author of occult books and black magic, and tells him that she did this ritual and she's a little scared. He tells her that the only way to get rid of Pyewacket, who is a shapeshifter, so she can't even trust anybody else right now, is to do the entire ritual but in reverse. So she says okay, and after school that day she goes into the woods to do the ritual. However, she sees her mother coming to the house, and she avoids her and goes into the woods. While doing the ritual, she sees her mom's dead body lying in the woods, and she's led to believe that the one, and she hears her, but she also hears her mother calling for her. So she thinks the one that's near the house calling out for her is Pyewacket in the shape of her mother, and her mother's dead body is actually there. So she goes to the house, and her mother calls for her. They speak, and then she she locks herself in a room, but Pyewacket comes in and attacks her in the form of a hag, like a contortionist kind of hideous creature. And finally, what happens is she escapes, but then comes back. Um, when she comes back, she sees her mother, and then they talk for a little while. She goes into the room, pretends to sleep, and while her mother is sleeping, she takes some gasoline and douses her mother with it, and then lights her on fire, and she is killed. Thinking that she's killing the demon, but that's actually her mother. She had also called her boyfriend Aaron, and when he comes, the entire house is on fire, and he finds her outside. He takes her back home. He takes her to the hospital, or but when she comes to, she's actually being spoken to by a police detective, and she realizes that Pyewacket had actually tricked her. The one in the woods was actually the Pyewacket pretending to be dead, and it also came in and attacked her and led her to believe that the one that she's killing is actually Pyewacket, but in fact was actually her mother. And that's the way the movie ends, with Leah being horrified, realizing that she's been tricked. What do I think of this movie? It's like, I think it's kind of average. It's not great. It's it's pretty low budget. I'm not really sure I could actually find a budget for this movie, but I'm guessing it's in the very low millions, probably like 2 or 3 million at the most. But you do get some good acting from Laurie Holden, and you get some Nicole Munoz also is pretty good in her role. Everything else is kind of average about the movie. The setting of the being in the woods does lend to that, to the atmosphere. The house being this cabin kind of style in the woods is actually a good idea on the part of the director. As in terms of a horror film, it doesn't actually scare me or give me any goosebumps. I was like lying in my bed, kind of like half asleep, but still watching the movie. So overall, I don't feel it's really effective in being scary. But it's a good story overall, and that's about it about the film. I think I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10. It's not very memorable. You're not going to recall this movie, and it's definitely not going to be in my my top horror list of top 20 or top 30 of all time anyhow. But overall, it was a good watch. I'm not really sure if I'll ever watch this again, because it's kind of slow and dragging in most places. Nothing really happens until more towards the end. So that's my review of Pyewacket. 6.5 out of 10, just about average. So take care, and we'll talk to you soon.